her actions as a congressperson, nothing to do with any of the issues before the Congress. It is simply repeating the claims that she is making in her campaign for re-election. That is impermissible in our view, and we're filing a complaint with the Ethics Commission to investigate that claim and to do whatever is appropriate to try to bring order back into this process. So we're very disappointed that Angie Craig, Representative Craig, has taken this approach when she should be held to a higher standard and follow the rules and the laws that are incumbent upon all members of Congress. We think this is a particularly egregious example of bad behavior, campaign behavior, and we expect more from our representatives, and we expect that after the election, when we elect Tyler Kistner to replace her, that we will not be seeing this kind of bad behavior from our representative at that point. I'm going to ask our attorney, Alec Beck, to come in and make a couple of comments about maybe some more specifics about the ethics complaint.
Thank you. Thanks, folks. I'm going to be very brief because this is extremely simple. There are some provisions in the Congressional Ethics Code that are ambiguous or complicated. This is not one of them. This is actually a federal statute. It's not simply an ethics rule. 39 U.S.C. and it's 3210 sub 6 for the record says thou shalt not send out mass mailings within 60 days of an election. This is apparently a mass mailing. Thou shalt not send out political pieces, and this is clearly a political piece. So there's some very clear violations here, and the particular statute is not a criminal statute, but it is enforced by the Congress itself. And that's why we've asked the Congress to take a look at this very clear, we think, violation and issue an opinion on it. And that's it. I'll turn it over to Tyler.
Thank you. I'll be quick as well. You know, it's outright shameful that Congresswoman Craig is willing to spend taxpayer dollars in an attempt to bolster her campaign's re-election efforts. This piece of taxpayer-funded mail clearly serves no purpose in fulfilling her duties as a representative of Minnesota's 2nd Congressional District. The language used in this mailer has repeatedly been used by Congresswoman Craig's campaign. She is so desperate to hold on to her political power, she is willing to use illegally taxpayer dollars to bolster her campaign efforts. Talking to people around the 2nd Congressional District who received this mailer, they were astonished to learn that their tax dollars paid for this piece of campaign mail. She has openly lied about many of her positions to her constituents and now is willing to use taxpayer dollars to push out her failing campaign message. Congresswoman Craig claims to be fighting against the corruption in D.C., yet she consistently shows she is willing to go to any end to help her failing political career, including breaking federal rules about frank mail. The people of the Minnesota 2nd Congressional District deserve to have a representative with honor, integrity, and morals to represent and serve them. Thank you. At this time, I will take any questions from the press.
When is this recent date? Like when do you have dates of when these? Sorry if I missed that. When
we'll get you the date. We'll email it out. I think it was, we got it 2 days after the deadline for the blackout period. So they cut it very close. We'll email out the date.
Is the deadline for when the mail is supposed to arrive at someone's house or the deadline for sending?
For sending.
For sending.
Yeah.
And you have a postmark on this?
We do. Yep.
Okay. It's not on.
We blurred it out because that's someone's name. Sure. I'm the campaign's consultant, so. Any other questions?
Can you say your name, please?
Billy Grant.
You said this arrived when?
I'll verify the date, but it arrived a couple days after we believe the blackout period should have been in place, or they were just right on the line. But as we said, there's a number of other violations here. It's not just the blackout period. She used a organization that is not government funded, Common Ground, in this citation, which you're not supposed to do. Again, she didn't reference any legislation, which is another violation. She doesn't reference any of her bills or committee hearings she's working on. So even if the blackout period doesn't apply, there's about 4 or 5 other violations in there that are a violation of federal law.
Again, can you say them again? You said an organization that's not government.
Yeah, she cited a non-government organization. She used language that is identical to her campaign language, which you're not supposed to do. Again, these sayings are all in her TV ads, they're all in her mailers, it's all the same language. And number 3, there's no mention of any legislation she's working on. So again, when you're sending these types of mailings, you're supposed to say, this is the bill I'm working on, this is the committee hearing I was in. You're supposed to provide some reference to what you're working on. You're not just supposed to blast out your campaign talking points. And again, Congresswoman Craig has plenty of campaign money to pay for a mailer like this. There is no reason she had to use taxpayer money for this mailer.
You know how much money it was spent?
We don't.
Taylor, is this the announcement that you were planning a couple of weeks ago and then had to pull back on? So you've known this for a while?
This was, the reason we delayed that was due to the tragic and unfortunate death of Paul Overby. And, you know, my heart does go out to her family as they're going through this tragic and very difficult time.
And has anything changed since then? Because we've obviously known about this for a couple of weeks now. Were there more details, more layers of rumors since then, or is it you've known this?
There were a couple more, and that's why he started laying them out there.
I can actually, there's one more. We'll hand out, Nick, do you have the complaint? Could you hand those out? Yes. Yeah. So there's one more thing that was added, which was, we believe, Congresswoman Craig's wife also was using her office for non-government purposes, which was also added at the last page. You can read that.
That's in this complaint.
Yeah, yeah, and there's photos.
And so is this a violation of law or ethics or both, or?
Both. I think it's, if it's mailing a mass mail, sorry. If it's a mass mailing that occurred within the blackout window, that's a violation of federal law, and we believe it is. But also the content, which is governed by ethics rules, there is nothing that would justify using the franking privileges and having taxpayers pay for what is essentially identical to her campaign pieces. There's nothing in this piece that would inform a voter about her activity as a congresswoman. It's simply about her position as a person running for re-election. So we think there's both a violation of law and violation of ethics.
And you think, you're asking the committee, the congressional committee, to open an investigation and take
Right.
appropriate action?
We're making a complaint. We're asking them to investigate the complaint.
Do you know what kinds of action, in Congress, the committee might take? Like, what could the consequences be, I guess, from the congressional?
I don't know specifically what, in this case, the penalties could be. I imagine that it could be sanctions of various kinds, could be a censure, I suppose. I don't know the exact detail of what this may rise to. I'm sure that the committee would have to meet. If it's similar to what we see in Minnesota legislative processes, the committee would meet, evaluate the complaint, and determine what penalty is appropriate.
Do you have any thoughts on candidate, Kistner, do you have any thoughts on more punishment or be for this?
I think this should be left to Congress to make that decision, pending what Congress will look like come post-November. This will probably be dealt with during the lame duck session.
And is there a better image of the postcard? Because this is just isn't really legible to see the date.
Yeah, we can email
it.
it.
Okay,
Yeah.
they have to hang up reds to
Yeah.
prove the date out or anything.
It was actually my wife who received it, so I have a copy for you.
You have it on it.
We have your contact.
I mean, is there any way to remedy this at this point in the campaign?
Yes, that's why we're asking for Congress right now, Speaker Pelosi, and those who are in Congress right now upholding the ethic rules to take, especially when Congresswoman Craig is always trying to stand out there and rid DC of corruption. We'd like to see them take that swift action to actually rid them of such.
I'll just add one more point on that. I think it's important for the voters to know that their congresswoman is abusing taxpayer dollars. That's the most important thing here. You have a congresswoman who is saying she's for the people, she's standing up to the lobbyists, she's standing up to the special interests. She's part of the problem. This is the problem in Washington, people who do this kind of stuff. All the stuff she's talking about fighting against, she's out there doing it. That's the point voters need to remember.
So I missed part of this. Is this about the franking privilege being misused?
Yes.
Could you recap for me, please?
We've got a handout for you. We can leave you as well. But essentially, we filed a complaint with the Ethics Commission, and we're asking them to investigate what we believe a violation of law by Representative Congress using the franking privileges, taxpayer dollars, to distribute what is essentially a campaign piece. And we have an example of the mailer right here, which says nothing about her activities as a congresswoman, nothing about any bills, nothing about any votes. It's simply a repetition of the message that she's been distributing in her campaign mailings and on her website. We think that's a violation of ethics. There's also a question about when this mailing occurred. If it occurred within the window that is forbidden by federal law, that could also be a violation of federal law.
Are you guys talking about the
the radio spots. This is simply about mailing.
Can I ask you a bigger question about your campaign?
Me? I don't have a
What's that?
Step aside.
Yeah.
She's raised more, your opponent's raised more money in the district than you have, and you have more outside money coming in than you've raised. What does that say, that she's able to raise more money in the district than you are, that your campaign's being?
Let's take a bigger step back. I think you're trying to get to the talking points she used in the debate repeatedly. Keep in mind, Congresswoman Craig takes almost the second most money out of any congressional member in terms of special interest donations. When you look at outside spending, it's actually almost equal in terms of Republican and Democrat. So she has just as much outside Democratic spending as we do Republican. That just shows that both parties are invested in this race, because this is one of the 7 key races across the entire country that will decide the fate of Congress.
But she's able to raise more in the district.
I'd have to look at the numbers, because right now I'd say I raise more in Minnesota than she would in totality of what she's raised in altogether, in terms of percentage-wise.
Any more debates on the docket?
You know, we tried. I know your network even knows that Congresswoman Craig only agreed to 1. We've agreed to 5, yet that would be the only one that we were going to do at this point. It's unfortunate, as we've wanted to go on Almanac, we've wanted to go on KSTP, we've wanted to do multiple ones, but Congresswoman Craig says her debate schedule was too busy.
Seems to be a theme with the Democratic candidates. None of them want to have debates. I think that's very unusual, and why? It must be a campaign tactic. I'm not sure what that tells the public. Maybe they don't want to talk about their record.
I think Thursday highlighted why she doesn't want to do anymore.
So Tyler, your consulting firm that's registered in Delaware, do you have any clients that are in conflict with what you'll be doing in Congress?
No.
What kind of clients do you have?
You know, I like to keep my clients private, because we've seen how political things can get in regards to the private sector, so I don't want to throw them out there as I help them out.
What would you say to people that are claiming that you've embellished your military record to say you were in combat?
What I'd say to them is, you know, I was proud of my service as an officer in the United States Marine Corps, where we pride ourselves on honor, we pride ourselves on integrity, and service above self. And I actually still have the award where it clearly states exactly what I've said, where I've led 3 combat missions, where I've advised, assisted, and at times accompanied partner force personnel. Quite frankly, I actually think it's disgusting that Congresswoman Craig, who's never served a day in her life, would use that as a political smear against a candidate who took 9 years of his life to sacrifice birthdays, sacrifice anniversaries, holidays away from my family.
Where do you think the race is at? Can you tell us, do your tracking polls show you a direction happening? What kind of distance do you have?
I'd like to say I'm up here smiling, feeling good. There's still 22 days left before this election is all over, and we're going to give it everything. But you can see the desperation of the Democrats, and it kind of gives you a little bit of light of where this race is headed and the momentum of one side over another.
And where is it headed?
We're looking pretty good, but there's still 22 days left.
Are you up in any internal tracking polls?
You know, the only poll that matters is November 8th.
On your consulting work, won't you have to disclose who your clients are if they're paying you a certain amount in your financial disclosures? And if not, will you voluntarily disclose or cut off some of the work that could be conflicts if elected? I mean,
If elected, I will put all my efforts towards being a representative for the 2nd Congressional District and no longer probably do my duties as a consultant.
Why was it important for you to get Minneapolis Police Union?
Minneapolis Police Union actually reached out to us. I'm here to represent every single constituent, to include the rank and file of the police departments. They reached out because they felt like they weren't truly being represented with the endorsement of another organization. So they wanted to step in just to show the epicenter of where this crime issue is happening, that the rank and file of the police departments across the state support our campaign.
So the MPD's members on the MPPOA board didn't vote with the rest of the board, Angie's board?
I do not know which way members voted.
Can we come back to the military record question too? Is there any clarity you need to, spell out on that? Did any of your records get distorted or aggrandized or anything? Is there anything that you feel like you need to explore or explain further on that?
There's actually a great article that was written by Task and Purpose by Jeff Jeff starts with an S, his last name. I'd ask you to go and pull that story up. He actually did a very good job of kind of expounding and diving into the details of the confusion that a lot of people have. I think that would clearly show exactly why it was only the Minnesota Reformer that ever reported on this, and no other major media outlet, to include anyone in this room, ever wanted to report on that, because they saw it as a political smear job.
So if somebody watches one of the PAC ads and comes away with the impression that you were in Iraq or Afghanistan or Somalia, someplace that was a hot.
That ad was on there for 24 hours only.
Yeah, there's a reason they took that ad down. And we can't coordinate with outside groups like that, so they obviously caught their own mistake, and took that ad down.
On the consulting thing again, so will you totally shut down your relationship with will you only be getting a paycheck from Congress, or how's that gonna, I mean, you're still gonna continue to?
I only help out small businesses. When I'm in Congress, I will continue to help support every single small business, but it's also about representing the people of the 2nd Congressional District. That's gonna be my top priority in my job.
So what he said earlier was he's shutting down the consulting firm and going to Congress. That's what he's doing.
That's what you're doing?
Yes,
Will you accept the results of the election?
yes, I will.
Where are you on whether Trump won in 2020?
I mean, I even said it in the debate. There is no arguing that Joe Biden is the president when you go to the grocery store or the gas station.
But who won the election? Who should really be in the White House right now?
I mean, President Biden is in the White House.
We're gonna leave.
Looks
it
like
there,
he won.
guys. John, he's been very clear on this. This is a ridiculous question, all right? We're gonna leave it there. Thanks,
It's not a
guys.
ridiculous question.
He's been on the record 6 times saying,
Is this his news conference or yours?
well, you
So-
can, you read any outlet, he's been quoted saying he believes Biden. If you guys would print what he says instead of not cutting the interviews up, you'd know this already. So,
Thanks for the tip.
cool, thank you.
All right, thank you, guys.